We put 4 options out. There are 4 viable options, and whichever one is selected by the school board is the one that we will work with and be happy about. A couple other things that have come up that I want to sort of talk about. The first is Veterans Day. I've gotten a couple of questions about why is Veterans Day a school day and Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day is not a school day. And there are a couple of reasons for that. And I'll just share very quickly a story. When I was in the very large county to the west of here with 180,000 kids as the chief academic officer, I went to our calendar committee and I said we should make Columbus Day a school day and we should take Veterans Day off. And what ended up happening, and this doesn't happen here because we're a small community, but what was interesting was there was a decision not to make Veterans Day a school, or Columbus Day a school day, because it's the largest girls soccer tournament in the northeast and central region in the United States, and it's the WAG, Washington Area Girls Soccer, and they had so much influence, and this was years ago, it's probably changed now, but I share that with you because sometimes there are bad reasons why things don't get changed, and sometimes there are good reasons. But our reasons and rationale, I think, are true and meaningful, I think, to us. And the first is, we just had Veterans Day, and it was at the end of the quarter. So if you look at our calendars, you'll see EQ on those calendars, and EQ means end of quarter. And we try to connect a teacher work day to the end of the quarter, and we try as hard as we can to maintain continuity of service right up to the end of that quarter. So in some of these calendars that you see, I believe that it's on the 11th of November, which is a Wednesday, and the end of the quarter is Friday the 13th. I think that's right. Or is that right? Friday the 13th, right around there? And the idea is that Friday the 13th would be a teacher work day. So trying to give off Wednesday and then also giving a teacher work day on that Friday was a little bit complicated. And the committee really, sorry? Yeah, because of where the start date is, it fluctuates from calendar to calendar. So anyway, so the calendar committee sort of looked at that and thought it doesn't make sense to give that Wednesday off, let's do the Friday. But the second reason, and probably the most pure of the reasons, is that this year in all of our schools, each of our schools did something to celebrate Veterans Day. And what we heard from our teachers that were on the committee, who also went back and talked with committee their representation, was that teachers really like doing things to celebrate veterans on Veterans Day, and they'd much rather be in school on Veterans Day to do that as opposed to being in school on Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. So that's those are the 2 primary drivers around why Veterans Day is a school day. And then one other question that we got is, why wasn't there, we have a 24th start date, but we don't have a 31st start date. And then we go to the 8th on 2 calendars, and we have the 24th on 2 calendars. Why wasn't there a middle piece? And the long story short on that is, when the committee looked at it and put in a 31st start date, it didn't fundamentally change the end of the year compared to the 2 post-Labor Day starts. Because as I mentioned in the very first meeting that we had, it's not like a 1-for-1. If you start one day earlier, you get out one day later, or get out one day earlier. There is a lot of movement with holidays. This coming year, we have an even more complicated piece right around Inauguration Day, because Martin Luther King Day is Monday, Inauguration Day is Tuesday, or Wednesday, and then Tuesday, what do we do with Tuesday? So we ended up giving a 5-day weekend there because it didn't make sense for us to come back just on Tuesday. But there are things within the calendar that indicated that if we put in a 31st date, that it wouldn't functionally shift the end date at the end of the year. So what we would end up putting out would be 3 calendars that would have us ending school after June 15th. And 1 that had us ending before June 15th. And quite frankly, when you set up some choice architecture like that, that's when it begins to look like, hey, this is wired up. They want us to select this one and not this one. And so to be fair to the community, the committee really felt like we need to put out 2 calendars that had earlier end dates than the June 15th, and 2 that started after Labor Day, and kind of let it fall where the end date was. So there was some juggling that was done, but the ad hoc committee really did look at it, and actually was one of the very first things that they dismissed as an option. and it was because they couldn't really make the end work in a way that would be meaningful to changing the start date to an earlier date and ending earlier. So with those couple of things just kind of out there, I'm going to invite up William Bates, who's our Chief Academic Officer. William, along with Kristen Michael, our Chief Operating Officer, are the two people that were responsible for really chairing the committee, this ad hoc committee. And so he's going to walk you through the calendars, and then we'll open it up to questions. And again, we'd love for you to document your questions so that we can put them on an FAQ as well. So, William. I advanced. I don't know if you want to.
That's fine. Thanks. So for the final part of the presentation, what we wanted to do is take a deeper dive into the 4 calendar options. And although the actual calendar, the 4 calendars, when you take a look at those, it provides a nice visual. We wanted to take just a few minutes to look at this list of the draft calendar options, where it outlines the specific dates, the major events. And so if you can pull that sheet up first, we would like to take a brief look into that. So we identified our major events, as Dr. Noonan shared, as the first day of school, the Mason moving days, the last day of school, and the graduation. And again, we like this draft sheet because it allows you to go across all 4 calendars and see the specific days and dates that each of these major events fall on. Now, taking a deeper dive into the draft calendar options in the summary sheet, we want to look at the holidays. And again, you can see we have our holidays in that left column outlined, and that's going to include everything from our major holidays to our religious holidays, days that we have off. We've also included teacher work days and professional development days. And I don't know if Dr. Noonan had mentioned the difference between the teacher work days and professional development days, but that question also came up. Your teacher work days are going to be teacher directed, and typically they would fall at the end of a quarter that affords teachers an opportunity to look at grades, to put grades in the grade book, and finalize assessments, and also do some planning. The PD days, and we'll get into that a little more as far as what each day or initial means, but our PD days, those are going to be system-wide directed. So typically we would have the entire professional staff come to one location at a given point in time and engage in professional development system-wide on various topics. So and I don't have a pointer, but if you look across each of the options, you can quickly cross-reference the days and dates for your pre-Labor Day option A, your pre-Labor Day option B, your post-Labor Day option A, and your post-Labor Day option B. And we just found it easier to use this list as opposed to spreading out all 4 calendars on the table. So please feel free to reference this list as we're going through. Okay, so next let's go ahead and take a look at our calendar options. And what I would like to do is orient you with the calendar. So we have pre-Labor Day option A, and it might be a little difficult to see, but you can use your pre-Labor Day option A calendar that's provided in your packet. What I want you to look at first is in the bottom right-hand corner, we provided a legend. And the legend has all of the important days that note a major event. So for instance, NT stands for new teacher, and you're only going to see those NTs at the very beginning of the calendar in August, because NT for new teacher means those are the first few days that the new teachers to the division report and receive their training and professional development and have an opportunity to get their classrooms together. We have PD, which is professional development. F stands for the first day of school, so you will only see one F on your calendar. EQ might be a little difficult to see, but EQ signifies the end of the quarter, so you will see 4 EQs on the calendar. And then the M is for Mason Move Day, but we also shared that that includes Mary Ellen Henderson as well. And the Mason Move Days are going to be aligned with the winter break, prior to and then immediately after on each of the calendars. We have TW, which signifies Teacher Workday, and we already shared what Teacher Workday, the definition or meaning of a Teacher Workday. And then H is a holiday. G is for graduation. And Y is year end. So Y, you'll see one capital Y on each of the calendars. And then the ER represents an early release. So anywhere you see that ER, you'll know we have an early release day. And then finally, what I would like to share with you as far as the calendars and the legends and the letters and numbers are at the bottom of each calendar, you will see the major holidays, including the religious holidays for each month. So for instance, if we're looking at July, you'll see that we have the day that Independence Day is observed versus the actual day that Independence Day falls on. So the division or the school system would observe it on the 3rd, which is the last working day of that week prior to July 4th. And then the 4th of July falls on the weekend, so we've also signified that. And then on the 31st, we have Eid, which is signified by a black diamond. So if you proceed through the calendar, you will see those black diamonds that signify major religious holidays. And these are, again, looking at our calendar in the bottom left corner now where we have the diamond and what the diamond represents. But these are regular school days unless otherwise indicated, and efforts will be made to avoid scheduling test activities and major school events. So for each month at the bottom of each calendar representing that month, you will see all of the holidays and observances. And then embedded in the calendar, you will see specific days where we have a holiday, where we have an end of the quarter, where we have a teacher work day versus a professional development day. Okay? All right, so calendar option A, if we look at that, our first day, and now we can look at either the calendar or the summary draft sheet, but our first day for students on calendar option A is going to be the 24th. And then what I'll do is I'll just go through and highlight significant dates, but a lot of what I'm sharing you can kind of go through and see yourself. But some of the things that have come up or that we looked at and received feedback on, if obviously September 7th is Labor Day and Friday the 4th of September is going to be a holiday because we're required to have a 4-day weekend if we begin school prior to Labor Day. And so that's why that H is there for September 4th. And then we have our PD Day on the 12th. Some of the major events or pieces of feedback that we received, I'll kind of point out, and then we'll go into the other calendars so we can compare. But you'll see we do have teacher work days in November on the 2nd and 3rd, and those teacher workdays fall immediately after